It seems like we're going to see a repeat here. So this will be the 2018 Autumn Second Chance Tournament. This is going to be a match between EAGLEMUT versus Sargsyan in the round of 32. EAGLEMUT ranked about PR 29 and Sarg an upcoming captain. Sarg being somebody under the tutelage of players like Turk and Beautiful, who've themselves done very well in previous tournaments. Turk as well being an up-and-comer, and Beautiful having won his own Second Chance tournament. Sargsyan, well, kind of the underdog in this match, certainly not somebody to be underestimated. EAGLEMUT, on the other hand, the only preceded mainline tournament player to have a negative win ratio in tournaments overall. It is a oft meme that he was a seed 13, basically a top 16 player. However, he did get knocked out in the round of 32 by Major Dark. We can take a look at the hunts here. I'd say this is alright in terms of the second and third hunts, maybe even fourth. They look good for Sioux. I'd say they're a bit closer for Sargsyan. They definitely seem very, very populous for him. But it's nothing too game-breaking. Everything's a healthy distance. If we look at the yaks, the Sioux player, not necessarily at an advantage here in terms of age 1 yak gathering potential. The Sioux explorer, while very fast, the French on the other hand have that native scout, but EAGLEMUT very wryly picking that native scout off, and very soon here it's going to be wiped off the face of the earth and not be able to gather these yaks or scout around the map for Sargsyan. Sargsyan taking an early 85 wood treasure, and with some very keen macro, he's going to be able to get the hunting dog's upgrade with barely any wood or coin overgathered. However, in terms of yaks, actually both players about on the same level. EAGLEMUT having 2 yaks in his base, and Sargsyan escorting 1 back, and also going to pick up a second here if he's keen. Missing it for now, but maybe he'll go back for it later. Take a look at the decks. For the Sioux player, going to see a little bit of a non-standard deck, having a bit more of those late-game unit buff upgrades, having both aggressive policy, which gives TPs an increased gather rate, as well as friendly territory, which boosts the attack as well as hit points and gather rate of all units, and the nomadic expansion card, which allows him to build more TPs for less cost, and they're a bit stronger in terms of hit points as well, a bit more durable. It was a bit of a fight with explorers, but there wasn't too much damage there, so not really that worth covering. But for the French player, let's take a look at his deck. Not totally standard, similar to Sioux, the EAGLEMUT, having the church card in his deck. I'm interested to see if maybe he's going to go for a cheese build order. Something like a fast fortress with the 12 grenadiers that he can get from the church. As well as maybe a 3 cuirassier or 5 goon shipment. He'll age up with 200 coin and 1 outpost and sneak the outpost to the side of the Sioux player's base. Then pop out those grenadiers and destroy his town center at the 8-minute mark. Very cheeky, but in terms of being the best strategy against Sioux, Sioux being a very cavalry-focused civilization, Grenadier is not going to fare very well against those, so if he does go with that line of play, it would be, I'd be interested to see it, to say the least. In terms of treasures at this point, Sargsyan picking up another wood treasure, but EAGLEMUT finding a nice 90 wood treasure of his own, and seems going to be chopping Probably gonna get a trade post. Having his Sioux Explorer Dog Soldier just sit by the trade post, gather a bit more hit points, and wait while he gathers the wood in order to get it. Sargsyan, on the other hand, already got the trade post, and just in time for that pass by the trade cart rickshaw man. One TP coming out for EAGLEMUT, and both players aging about the same time. So not going with the cheese build order like I might have hoped from Sargsyan. Going with the standard 400 wood, as well working on herding this one into his base. Also has a line of sight of these two yaks over here, both players, but neither one moving to pick it up. EAGLEMUT having a bit of idle time here with his Explorer, but not too big a deal because at the end of the day that Explorer is still recouping some of his hit points, and especially the Sioux Explorer, giving a speed aura to all of the Sioux military units. It's nice to just let him sit for a minute, gather his HP, because he's so useful in combat. Sargsyan going for that farther yak down towards the south rather than these two yaks sitting at the middle, but picking them up now. Not bad. Sargsyan starting out with a barracks here. Let's look at the units in queue. In fact, it seems he has 6 musketeers in queue, but only 1 barracks, so he's going to go for maybe a 15 musketeer semi-FF. Quite a good strategy against Sioux. Basically being able to ward off any aggressive play, whether that be with like a 4 axe rider shipment or just some bow riders prodding away at the coureur de bois around the map. But knowing EAGLEMUT, and especially taking a look at his deck, I don't think he's going to go for any aggressive playstyles this time around. Building an orbit of 3 TPs around his town center. Going to grant him an aura gather rate buff around these villagers that are sitting on the coin mine. As well extending to some of them on the hunt over here. Starting with a stable and training a few axe riders of his own. But not doing anything with them yet. Sargsyan still keen to just sit in his base with these musketeers. 15 musketeers. Putting down a stable with the 700 wood shipment coming out as his 3rd card. EAGLEMUT looks like he's distributing to go to age 3 very soon here, and I'm wondering if that's the case with Sarg as well. Let's look at the units in queue. There's a stable in queue, but no more musketeers, so I think he's kind of content with this musketeer mass he has. He knows that EAGLEMUT, of course, being the defensive player, he's probably going up as well since he hasn't seen any pressure. Sarg, that is. And even if there were units on the field for EAGLEMUT, it's nothing these 15 musketeers can't hold. And so yeah, Sargsyan, as well the 700 coin shipment on the floor for him, gonna age up as well. EAGLEMUT putting up a war hut, a defensive war hut, mind you. Not anything forward towards the mid-map. As well trying to herd these 2 hunts for him. Closer to these TPs as well as this war hut. Keep them safe as well, getting a bit of a gather rate bonus from these TPs. Both players playing quite passively so far. Even the French player with his knowledge that EAGLEMUT at the very least isn't pressuring him yet. Not making any forward moves. Six musketeers, gonna connect some shots on the cavalry from EAGLEMUT. But again, EAGLEMUT, the rating, not totally a part of his game plan here. Only getting a batch of 1 bow rider out, but I think that's okay because he's going for a very, very economic playstyle. He's playing the long game here, not anything in the short term, or even mid-late game term. Minor engagement going down over here, taking down the Explorer from Sargsyan. At this point, not too big of a deal. Basically, the Explorer functions as kind of a scouting tool, but more or less a meat shield for when an engagement does occur. $1,000 wood, going to be the first shipment in Fortress Age for Sargsyan. Sargsyan making some forward movements with his superior military mass, taking some control around the center. And I'm gonna just take a look here and prod inside EAGLEMUT's base to see what's going on. And the first card from EAGLEMUT is going to be Friendly Territory. Not first card, but first card around the time where he was trying to age up. It's going to be Friendly Territory, which grants his TPs an attack boost for his units. So I think Wakinas actually have a base attack of 18, but you can see here, boosted by a few of these TPs, it's going to boost them up to 26 now. As well, these bow riders having about 20 normal ranged attack normally. That's going to pump up to 29 in the range of these TPs. Nice pickups for EAGLEMUT, taking down two dragoons for just a tiny bit of damage on the one Wakina rifle. Sarg converting that 1,000 wood shipment into a mid-map town center, going to grant him a lot of line of sight, a shipment point, additional economic output. So feeling pretty safe on these rather exposed hunts, now that he has his entire military parked, guarding it, basically, and having good line of sight. I'm wondering where this bison tech came from. I don't see a shipment for it, but bison certainly not being something that regularly spawns on the map Manchuria. I don't know if that was an upgrade that is now available from TPs and EP. That's not something I'm aware of, so I am kind of clueless as to where those came from. But a Sarg massing up dragoons as well as skirmishers from his stable in one barracks. And with the falconet shipment, gonna look to push out at this time. Getting some very nice shots off on the Wakinas. Nice blasts off as well. But the bow rider's gonna come forward, try to snipe these falconets. Sniping down one, but not without losing about 5 bow riders himself. As well, the falconet's still tasked on these Wakinas, doing massive damage, like I said. This trade looking very in the favor of Sargsyan, who still as well has an economic advantage, even considering all of these trade posts. But Sarg, for some reason, not choosing to push in. EAGLEMUT reinforcing his units with these TPs, which will grant him an additional attack aura that stacks with every single trade TP that is built. Using the falconet to siege now, but it's in a bit of an exposed position. Not anymore with these dragoons coming forward. Gonna get some nice shots off on these exposed bow riders. Not really doing a good job of focusing that falconet on the war hut like I'd hoped for, but still EAGLEMUT, or excuse me, Sargsyan coming away from this trade very well. Losing 2 dragoons there, but not a big deal. Again, he's got such a military lead that it doesn't really matter if he fights totally ineffectively right now. There's just so many units here that even when he does fight ineffectively, he's going to be ahead. A TP coming down, being sieged down by that falconet. Still focusing on the TPs and rather not the war hut. The 9 Wakina shipment coming out for EAGLEMUT, that's going to bolster his mass. But it still doesn't solve the issue of this one remaining falconet in the back of Sargsyan's army. Basically, I think this is go time for EAGLEMUT. About to lose his last production facility. This is going to be his best opportunity, and I especially like, with the dog soldier pop coming out from the town center big button. In fact, that's going to entirely clean up Sargsyan's military, being boosted by these TPs. Getting a nice surround, a nice rainbow position, maximizing his DPS, and eliminating any overkill. And that cleans up every single one of Sargsyan's units except for 5 dragoons, as well as this reinforcing batch. But being caught, being snared in an awkward position, gonna lose these remaining 5 dragoons, and maybe even lose these 5 reinforcing dragoons, or at least get some damage on them. And taking a look at the scores, they've definitely evened up. At one point, Sargsyan was sitting at 170 military, or not military population, but 170 score, where EAGLEMUT was at just 110. But now, oh, I spoke a bit too soon there. Sargsyan probably had a lot of military units in queue, and that's why his score was a bit deflated. Even still, EAGLEMUT doing a very nice job to even up military unit populations. But I don't think this is his right engagement. Even when the Sioux units aren't boosted by trade posts, or excuse me, TPs, they're still very strong. Especially with this one lone dog soldier, giving him a bit of flex if Sargsyan isn't careful on focusing his skirmishers. As well, these Coureurs de Bois coming in for some nice DPS against the bow riders. The bow riders not having any ranged resistance. EAGLEMUT now building some forward TPs, but it might be a little too late. That said, basically the entire fighting force of Sargsyan is these Coureurs de Bois, as well as 10 skirmishers behind them. Still, it seems like it's going to be enough, and even if it is enough, per se, that's a lot of lost gathering time for the French player. So, coming in with the dog soldier there, and the explorer, that's going to be enough to clean up these remaining skirmishers. But a 5 cuirassier batch, let's see what he can make of that. But those bow riders in nice range of these TPs going to get a massive buff. 33, where I think normally they're around 24 attack. More dog soldiers coming out from the 3 dog soldier shipment for EAGLEMUT. And now Sargsyan sitting with no military units on the field. An exposed town center with no resources around it. And 1,000 coins sitting idle. Those villas probably going to be pressured into the TC rather than gathering those crates like he'd like. Sarg still does have knowledge that there should be a coin mine here, but that might be scouted by EAGLEMUT, which is why it appears in my line of sight and not Sargsyan. Sarg having a A lot of food, but not a lot of coin with which to make units. And even when he is able to make units, he's still going to be outmassed by the Sioux player. EAGLEMUT now transitioning to C. Basically, the only available resource he has being this wood. And when he wants to extend for the hunts, you know, it's kind of exposed, maybe not to his liking, while he pressures other spots of the map. But getting line of sight is a good hunt here, and that's going to definitely supplement his food income, allow him to continue production with his town center. But with so many villas tasked on wood, he's also going to be able to begin ecoing up on the sea. And considering his present military and momentum advantage, EAGLEMUT's kind of at liberty to do with what he wants in terms of his macro management. Sarg recognizing there is in fact another coin mine up here, looking to readjust the economic disparity between food and coin. But for the first time in this match, Sargsyan actually sitting on lower score than the Sioux player. And I do think that that bodes quite poorly for Sargsyan here. Now with 10 TPs as well as a town center establishing control over this center gold mine, as well as a hunt. I think it's basically an impregnable fortress for the Sioux player, and I'm hard pressed to see what Sargsyan can do here to take back the game. Seems as though he may be distributing for an age up. Let's take a look at the units and queue, see if he has anything going on there. Yep, he is queuing up skirmishers and dragoons, so he's not looking to go to the industrial age. But even still, considering EAGLEMUT's newfound ability to build TPs forward that boost his unit's attack, I don't know that continuing to mass units in age 3, his units being so much inferior, is the right call for Sargsyan. I think he kind of has to go with a balls to the wall sort of play where he just, you know, maybe goes up to the industrial, has a miracle factory or 2 heavy cannon shipment where he gets massive damage off and he's able to stabilize and make something from there. But if he continues to mass age 3 units, which are inferior to the Sioux player's age 3 units, while the Sioux player has momentum and better economic potential now that all of the natural resources are spent on the map on the French player's side, I don't know how much longer Sargs can hold out here. But not being discouraged, you have to give him that. Transitioning to mills here, again, not quite what he needs, given a look at the resource count. Basically no gold mines left on the map, save for this single gold mine that's controlled by EAGLEMUT. More defensive TPs coming out. And EAGLEMUT now approaching with the economic advantage, as well as the military, the momentum, and having map control, and even control of the sea to an extent. He's content to just sit here and wait for Sargsyan to make his move. He doesn't need to make an outward move yet. I don't think he's interested in risking anything. Maybe Sargassian's packing a cheeky 3 falconet or something. EAGLEMUT doesn't have to make a fumble. He doesn't have to make any moves of his own. He's content just sitting here and working, plowing ahead with a stronger economy. Continuing to bolster his defensive positioning with another war hut. In fact, deleting all the trade posts that once orbited his TC, giving him the potential to press forward. Now that EAGLEMUT's units have been idle for so long, I kind of would have liked for him to, maybe pressure this town center, at least siege it down, or at least prod it. He's not in a terrible position to just go back from this side or this side, as long as he stays on top of his scouting. He definitely could have made better use of these units rather than having them idle for so long, I feel. But even still, it's not that big of a deal, considering EAGLEMUT is just so far ahead economically in terms of map control, momentum, as I've mentioned earlier. Sarg not building any plantations, not going for the coin line of play, or the coin unit. Instead, opting to make a lot of pikemen, and maybe we'll see some veteran expo-men pop out here soon. Even still, I'm a bit skeptical of what veteran longbowmen could do against 50 upgraded Wakina riflemen. But as I asked of him earlier, EAGLEMUT choosing to siege down this TC now, not bringing his cavalry yet to reinforce the sides of his Wakina mass, but not too big of a deal. He's already scouted Sargsyan's military out quite a bit and knows he doesn't really have anything surprising there. He doesn't have any cuirassiers, he doesn't have any falconets. Basically, he doesn't even have any coin production, considering there's no coin left on the map. But for better or for worse, Sargsyan choosing to push out here, losing a bunch of units being picked off by this imposing mass of Sioux Wakina riflemen. Oh, the church card and the grenadiers coming out for the French player. But even still, these Wakinas just deal so much damage, especially being buffed by the 2 Kittle support shipment, which grants 20% more attack, if I'm not mistaken, for Wakina riflemen, or it might be 20% hit points. Either way, gonna clean up this French mass, and from this point forward, there's not a lot, I believe, the French player can do. And that'll be GG called for Sargsyan. First game going to EAGLEMUT in a best-of-3 series. I believe map number 2 is going to be Grand Chaco. And should the match go on to a game 3, the map will be High Plains. I should also mention that the winner of this match is going to face I Am Turk in the round of 16. So EAGLEMUT sitting with a 1-0 lead. And if we were to diagnose kind of the issue, or where I believe Sargsyan kind of fumbled with his lead, I think that was just the engagement right around the 12-minute mark, where Sarg had a falconet out and was doing some good damage and sieging down EAGLEMUT's defensive base. But actually that occurred around the 15-minute mark. My bad. He got a really nice engage at the 12-minute mark. But at the 15-minute mark, that was basically EAGLEMUT's go time. He was about to lose his stable and have no more production facilities, and he brought his military in from 2 different sides, getting a nice aura from his TPs, all of his units boosted. Sarg not really paying attention to the fight, or doing something like kiting or anything like that, just doing a standing engage into EAGLEMUT's boosted military. And from that point, it was hard for him to get back up, having lost his entire military population. So that'll be game 1. Moving on to game 2, as I said, going to be on Grand Chaco, I believe. EAGLEMUT's going to be the first one to lock their civilization here. and Sargsyan will be the one that gets the opportunity to counterpick. And knowing EAGLEMUT, he's quite famous for his liking of India. And India doing quite well on Gran Chaco, Gran Chaco being a map that has no trade post and has a little bit of herdables in the form of llamas around the map. That would go quite in the favor of the Indian civilization. India being so versatile, they're a very good agnostic pick on this map. So even though Sargsyan will get the opportunity to counterpick, I'm hard-pressed to expect, or even, postulate what would be a good pick into EAGLEMUT's India. Even Sargsyan expecting it. Though EAGLEMUT not being one to disappoint, he has done some wacky things in past tournament matches. Especially with that very unorthodox Sioux playstyle coming out in Game 1, so he's not one to defy expectations. But that said, indeed gonna go with the civilization he's most comfortable with, locking in India. A tacit acknowledgement from both players. Sarg picking the Dutch. And in terms of his civ pool, I do think that's probably the best option that he has. Dutch as well. A civilization that likes to play on no trade post maps, where they don't have to try to deny the supplemental economy their opponent can get from control of those trade posts. India and Dutch doing very well in these sort of plain maps where there aren't a lot of options for their opponents. So this will be Game 2 in a best-of-3 series as a part of the Autumn 2018 Second Chance Tournament. This is the round of 32. Spawning in the south of the map will be Sargsyan. In the color teal, playing as the Dutch. And in the north of the map is going to be EAGLEMUT. In the blue, playing as the India. EAGLEMUT splitting up his Indian explorers, going to get some good scouting on the map. Looking to pick up these llamas that are distributed across the center bar of Gran Chaco. If we can take a look at the hunts, I see 3 pretty easy hunts for EAGLEMUT here. And let's look at the same for Sargsyan. So one very healthy one over there. This Rhea hunt seems perfectly herdable, as well as this small guanaco hunt. Looks good for both players. And now that we know where the llamas are, EAGLEMUT already picking up 4 of the 8 llamas. Missing the ones stationed over here, but probably going to pick up the 2 located over here. Definitely a map that EAGLEMUT has practiced. He knows exactly where these llamas are. Picking up 6, now in his control, to Sargsyan 0, who doesn't really seem like he knows exactly where those llamas should be located. Instead, just going to the right side hand of his base. And gonna pick up a nice 120 coin treasure. But India taking control of all of the 8 llamas, basically as good as that 120 coin treasure that Sargsyan is now picking up. These llamas for the India player. India can't actually eat livestock. Instead, livestock themselves generate a small trickle of experience points for India. Basically, what that's going to do is better streamline the Indian player's shipment progression. And what that really does is it kind of strengthens their Fortress Age play. And especially against a civilization like Dutch, where they especially like to go up to the Fortress Age and play it out from there. Their Age 2 composition of Skirmisher, Pikeman, Hussar, not really being the greatest in comparison to something like Musketeers, Hussars, or an more easily microable composition. Dutch liking to go up to Age 3, and these llamas for the India player, gonna help them do the same. A contention on 100 XP, and EAGLEMUT not being very attentive, gonna lose out on that. But Sargsyan's Explorer, being a bit damaged from the 2 Jaguar shipment that he was taking earlier, going to be pushed back to his base. However, Dutch starting with the Envoy, he's still gotten some nice scouting on the map. You know, he's got this whole radius. And he did pick up that 100 XP treasure, which is quite a nice deny. I'm also interested to see if EAGLEMUT's maybe going to go with a forward villager, a forward Agra. Seems he's sending one up right now. I want to see how forward that Agra is. Basically, how aggressive does EAGLEMUT want to play this matchup? Is he just going to go for the mid-map Agra over here and maybe put on a little bit of pressure in Age 2, maybe train like 5 Gurkhas and just prod Sargsyan's base? And then go up to the Fortress Age himself, you know, in the back of that? Or is he going to go with a more aggressive line of play? Where he does something like the Consulate build order. Something where he starts with the Consulate, and at around the 6-minute mark, he goes in with 5 sepoys and 300 export being shipped. Getting the British Consulate and the 6 Redcoats. It's a slower timing, but still something that could definitely be effective against an unprepared player. Sarg feeling comfortable. He's got good line of sight with this Envoy, and unbeknownst to him, or actually beknownst to him, he already does know that EAGLEMUT's going for this treasure up north. So probably not having the crack shot yet, though. It'll be a bit risky to try and creep this treasure. Of 100 food guarded by 2 outlaw blowgunners. Gonna go for it now. Not quite in range, but aging up nicely. I'd really like to see him get this Explorer close to the treasure before he kills off this outlaw blowgunner. If he doesn't do that, he really does run a high risk of losing this treasure. And not being very keen there, EAGLEMUT gonna pick it up. Forward Agra. Only 75% of the way done there. EAGLEMUT sitting on quite a bit of food, and just recently switching over some vills to coin. 3 villagers on coin now. And if that were to kind of clue me into anything, I would expect some sepoys in queue shortly here. Once we see that 30 coin in queue, we might be able to see it, depending on his macro. Yep, we see 30 coins sunk there, so he's going to be starting out with a sepoy batch. We also see the Consulate coming up. So I'd expect the 300 export shipment coming in soon for EAGLEMUT. Then he's going to ally with the British and pop out 6 Redcoats and go with an aggressive Consulate rush build order. With a big mass of Musketeer-type units walking into Sargsyan's base. Sargsyan starting out with 700 wood. That's going to get him his 2nd bank, a barracks. Still sitting on a bit of wood. Gonna get him up market. Probably another house as well. Following that up with the bank wagon shipment. Five scrims in queue for Sargsyan. And in fact, a little bit of a slower build order coming out for EAGLEMUT. He still did get the very fast Consulate, but he chose to send the big wood trickle first in Colonial Age. Botching a very fast rush with the 300 export card, but still probably getting out a decent mass. We can see he's still got more sepoy in queue. And very shortly here, he should be allied with the British. Maybe popping out those 6 Redcoats and going for a slower timing, which, to be honest, I'm not quite a fan of, considering Sargsyan is sitting quite comfortably in his base with 3 barracks and 5 defensive skirmishers out. And with that 600 food on the floor for Sargsyan, and this quite quite large imbalance of food to coin for him. I'd expect a 4th bank to come out soon, maybe even a 5th with that 600 wood. Just to kind of redistribute his resources to what he needs. But it certainly looks like he's not planning on building any more than these 10 skirmishers in age 2. I'm going to try to go up after that. Again, a bit of a slow burner for EAGLEMUT. Seems he went with the Ottoman consulate in the 4. The 3 gardeners, I should say, first, as his military unit choice of consulate. But yeah, these skirmishers being very exposed, not having a wall, just the cavalry mass from the Indian player just bleeding through these town centers. Or not the town center, but the soft wall from the buildings placed here. But still, EAGLEMUT not getting a really great engage on these skirmishers. There's still so many of them alive, and they're able to prod off these, pick off these sepoys, I should say. Even still, neither player doing a great job microing, but EAGLEMUT just having the superior mass. Very awkward 8-pike timing for the Dutch player. Still, the Indian player going to be able to pick off basically every single one of these military units from the Dutch player. Holding these villas hostage in this town center. Five sepoy shipment coming out. Going to bolster his mass that's currently sitting underneath Sargsyan's TC. Another 10 sepoy. And even just judging by the score, not even considering all these vills that are not gathering for the Dutch player, it seems EAGLEMUT's so far ahead. In fact, I don't even believe that the Dutch player's queued to age up to the fortress age. Basically having lost his 8-pike shipment in age 2. The only other military shipment that the Dutch can send kind of bail him out is 3 Hus, and against this massive sepoy, that's not going to be very effective. Forward caravanserai coming out for the Indian player. Going to help to balance out his composition, which is currently comprised of only sepoys. Sarg doing a decent job of kiting back with his skirmishers here. But losing that barracks. Ooh, we do see a CM pop, a colonial militia. 12 Minutemen come out for the Dutch player, costing 400 food and 400 coin. As well, the colonial militia card buffs the town center. Its attack when there are units in the villagers penned up in the TC. Even still, these Minutemen not getting great value. I believe they only killed about 1 or 2 sepoys. And not being able to catch up with the rest of the mass. Not the greatest of investments. Seems that EAGLEMUT sent his 4 villager shipment, or 4 settler, I should say, from the Ottoman consulate. They were sent to the Agra fort, which was his home city shipment point, and they went forward and a few of them died there. But yeah, these colonial militia, having lost all their hit points, now sitting at 1 HP, not being very valuable, just getting picked off by the longer range Gurkhas. And with that said, the Indian player, quite a bit ahead in eco, as well as having a much more defensible position. What with this impending forward base from the Indian player. Sargsyan would be hard-pressed to find a way to push out and create some pressure of his own. He's still got these 4 banks pumping away coin to his coffers, but with only a barracks coming up now, but It's just going to be very awkward for him to be able to mass enough units with which to do something meaningful in the colonial age. Just having botched that fortress age up, putting him behind so much, having to send a suboptimal shipment at a suboptimal time and 8 pikemen. I just wish that were 8 skirmishers and that he had gone up to the fortress age. Getting in a bit of a raid now, but even still, picking off 1 villager. Gonna deter these 5 villagers away from that coin mine, but it's not that big of a deal. Even having lost that villager, EAGLEMUT's gonna be well ahead in terms of economy. But coming with another Hussar raid, that could actually be quite a nice pickup. Gonna get at least 1 villager, and maybe even deter these coin gatherers over here. However, that said, EAGLEMUT coming back with his camel mass. These camels going to be a much faster speed than these Hussars. I'm going to clean them all up here. Basically trading maybe 1 or 2 villagers for 3 Hussars. And a bit of gathering time from the Indian player. But like we saw in Game 1, EAGLEMUT not under a lot of pressure, and the pressure that he is under is quite easily defensible. So he's just content to sit mid-map, eco up, continue to bolster his military mass, and push out when he feels good and comfortable. Sarg, being at the economic deficit, he has to make a move shortly, or he's just going to continue to go farther and farther behind in this match. Basically, what he would need right now is just the miracle military engagement. And Sarg, it's going to be very difficult for him to navigate himself to that point where he can kind of get that god engage. Especially the longer that he waits. EAGLEMUT coming in here. Sours, Zambaraks, and Sepoy. Those Sours gonna clean up those the skirmishers very, very quickly. Dealing almost half health with both upgrades. And the Zambaraks gonna do a really, really fine job of cleaning up these Hussars. Even with that cheeky wall from Sarg, it's just not going to be enough to defend against this push from the Indian player. And very shortly here, I believe we're going to be seeing game called by Sargsyan, and that's going to be 2-0 for EAGLEMUT. Going to win him the series. But I suppose Sarg, not feeling it's over quite yet. But there it is. GG. And that'll see EAGLEMUT moving on to the round of 16. Going to face I Am Turk, another formidable opponent. And if we could look at the graphs here. Basically, in terms of a villager population, you also have to consider that EAGLEMUT sent the big trickle card for the big wood trickle, which is called foreign logging, that grants 2.35 wood trickle. He sent that early on, and that's basically a 5 villager shipment for the Indian player. If we look at all resources gathered, the Dutch player was still quite ahead, but when that engagement came in under his base, having so many villagers penned up for so long, it wasn't long before the Indian player caught up and just had a superior economy. Basically, for the Dutch player, I think it was the wrong decision to pump his resources into more units. I think he should have, for one, maybe gotten a more crisp wall around his base that would have prevented the Indian player from swarming him with cavalry. In addition to that, he should have just balls to the wall, gone with the fortress age up, and, you know, if he lost all those skirmishers in an awkward position, so be it. At least he's up in the fortress age and he can make superior units and Reuters and veteran skirmishers to better hold off against the opposing Indian mass. But not being the case here, and EAGLEMUT's going to pick up his victory and move on to the round of 16.